Obviously, I wanted it to work out regardless of how it felt because I didn't want to be at home, unemployed with my law degree, meeting all of the stereotypes that people had already spoken to me about. But they said no. Hi, my name is Nandumisa and I'm an admitted attorney. This is my journey of pursuing a career in law. So, the first question you obviously ask yourself, which I did, is why do you want to study law? Why do you want to study law? I was passionate about medical negligence law because there were a couple of cases in my family where there was medical negligence, and I just wanted to really see how the law would handle that because there was injustice in those cases. The second reason why I wanted to pursue a career in law is because I was interested into getting into business. I wanted to be in a career that would allow me enough flexibility that if I wanted to get into business, it would be easy. It would be a smooth transition. And law was the answer for that. And it still is because you have things like consulting, legal compliance, and all sorts. So it seems like the good option, right? So let's get into the application process. In my final year, I was doing a lot of extracurricular activities and I was traveling internationally. So I actually didn't put as much effort as I should have into applying. And that was a big mistake because by the time that people were getting their acceptance into university, I had only applied to like 2 or 3 universities. I hadn't heard back and I had received rejections, and my university application ended up being late. And because it was late, there weren't enough spaces. So I had to choose between taking a gap year, continuing to try with different universities to see if I could get space, or getting into a degree that I wasn't necessarily interested in just so I could get my foot in, of course, be there for a year and then bridge into law. I chose to do that. I didn't want to have a pause in between my study. I didn't want to take a gap year. So I went into a BA arts degree. I don't even remember what it was. I knew that my goal was to get into law, and the requirement for that is in that year you get 65% or more for your average, and then you could get into law. Obviously, that was my goal, so I did well. I got into law. So I started studying law, first year, second year, going great, getting great marks, part of the Golden Key Society. I was like, you know what, this is what's up, I'm killing it. And this is where things get a little tricky. We had a career fair where some of the big 5 law firms came and everybody was excited, obviously, because that's what you think, right? You think you're going to get into Bowman's, Weber Windsor, etc., etc. So we were there and we were obviously asking questions. What does it take? What must one look at? And at that point in time, I thought I was safe. I was like, it's meant to be. My marks were doing really well. I was in the 70s and 80s and I wasn't worried. So I remember speaking to this one guy and asking him, he was from Bowman's, and he said, well, it's great that your marks are doing well. However, they're actually looking for an all-rounded person. What is an all-rounded person? What does that mean? Basically, how he explained it was that it's great that you have great marks, but they also want to see that in the real world environment, you will be able to juggle your personal life, your, I don't know, personal issues, and your job. So this means that you actually have to have some extracurricular activities in your CV for them to see that you're an all-rounded person. So I was like, yeah, but then what happens to the marks now? And he says, no, if you can keep a good average, obviously above 65%, and be all rounded, then you've got a great chance. So I was like, now I started doing extracurricular activities, and the moment I started to do that, my marks started to drop because now I wasn't focusing on my studies alone, but I was doing all of these other things on the side to be an all-rounded person. And then I started applying. I was applying to via Leaply for the big 5. You know that they're there using Leaply. I was applying and unfortunately I wasn't getting nowhere. I had been applying since the 3rd year. I was trying my best, applying for vacation work. I heard nothing. Applying for volunteering or shadowing, I didn't get anything. All I got were rejections, and it was obviously so heartbreaking. I didn't know what to think or what to make of it, but I decided that I was going to continue. Obviously, knowing that these law firms expect you to have some form of experience in your CV. Now, if you don't get vacation work, how are you supposed to get this experience? So obviously the next thought was volunteering or getting into university associations. I wasn't really interested in university associations, but I did join a few. And what I did do instead, I decided to get practical work experience outside of law because that's where I was getting the opportunities. And I thought, well, if I can at least have something in my CV, even if it's not related to law, surely I'll do great. I tried waitressing and I only survived 4 days. And then I went into some volunteering work for Science Expo because that's always been in my passion. It's always been one of my passions. I did that, and I was able to get some stuff on my CV. By the time that I got to my final year, I still had not been able to secure articles. Mind you, a lot of these law firms will recruit like a year in advance, 2 years in advance. So by the time I got to final year, it wasn't looking good because I had not received any offers. I had been receiving rejections or not hearing back from them. My mocks were doing okay, but I had all of these other things going on with my extracurricular activities. Even in my final year, I started doing things and traveling to try and boost up my CV. Fast forward, 2020, I graduated from university. No article is in sight. I have a bit of experience on my CV. I was doing well with my mocks. I had a pretty good average. I think I was towards 68, 70, a couple of distinctions here and there, but unfortunately, nothing. To make matters worse, when I graduated, it was 2020, so it was COVID. So a lot of law firms were not really recruiting at that point. Some law firms were shutting down. It was the lockdown. It was December of 2020 when I graduated. So from December to the time when I got my first job, I was unemployed for exactly 3 weeks, which is not a long time. I thank God for that. And I'm going to obviously do another video where I just share what it was and finding myself in that and leaning on God and really trusting and praying. But to get back into it, I was unemployed for 3 weeks and I was losing my mind. Like, I never want to be in a position where I'm not doing anything. It just makes me feel like I'm a failure and things are not working out, like how anybody would feel. So I was worried. And also you hear a lot of stories, because when I was studying, I was hearing a lot of stories about people talk about how, oh, I know so and so who has a law degree and now they work at this shop and now they're doing this. Are you sure you want to continue with law? There's not a lot of opportunities in South Africa. And you kind of scope the vibes, you're looking around and you're not even getting any opportunities. Nobody's getting back to you, getting rejected. You don't have any connections. It's just not looking good. There was a lot of discouragements, I don't want to lie. Even people in my own family were like, oh, we don't know how it's going to work. Maybe when you graduate, you might do like a PGCE and bridge into education and become a teacher. At least you're going to be able to work. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. Even though I didn't really have a plan because things were not working out, but I decided it's not what I was going to do. So let's get back into it. I graduated and then I had an interview, first one for articles. In those 3 weeks I was unemployed, and it was a lovely lady. It was in Cape Town and I was in Durban at the time, and she needed somebody to start immediately, and she said she thought I really did great. It was like 3 of us who were finalists and she chose to go with somebody who was right there, who was readily available, which was obviously a bummer for me because it was like, oh, what am I going to do now? But she was really sweet, because what she then did is she sent my CV to a few people in her network and said, hey, if you have something, this person is really great. I wasn't able to give them the opportunity, but obviously if you are, it would be amazing. And that was so sweet. I really hope that a lot of people can do that. And I would also love to do that, just passing people's CV around, because it was great for me. I had another interview, another law firm here from her network. We had the interview and it just didn't feel like the right fit, even for me. Obviously, I wanted it to work out regardless of how it felt, because I didn't want to be at home, unemployed with my law degree, meeting all of the stereotypes that people had already spoken to me about. But they said no, and I was bummed. And then I had the third interview. I received a call from my now previous boss, who was a group legal director of a corporate real estate company. And that wasn't going to give me an opportunity to do my articles, but it was going to give me a role in an internal legal department for obviously a corporate real estate company. And I was going to take it. I was going to take anything related to law at this point in time, because I didn't want to stay at home. Sure, it wasn't great that I wasn't going to pursue my articles, but I thought, you know what? Speaking to my mom, and we thought it's a good way to get the foot in the door, and it's always best to apply already having something instead of applying at home. It's just so depressing. So I was like, okay, cool. Basically, what they were offering me is an opportunity to just get some exposure and experience. So it was initially going to be 3 months of me working in there so I can add something to my CV, and also in those 3 months try to apply for articles. Again, these people were really kind. I think that God was really just blessing me with his favor, because how are people so kind? They just want to, they can't really help you with what you need because they were not practicing attorneys. So they couldn't bring me in for articles, but they were willing to give me some exposure. So I took it thinking it's 3 months. If it doesn't work out, if they don't keep me or whatnot, at least I'll have that experience of actually working in an internal legal department. So I went ahead, moved there, and I started working. So obviously I started working there and it was great. I just loved the idea that I had an opportunity. I was working with real people. This was my first time in a professional environment after applying for more than 3 years. It was kind of like, it's okay, I'll take it. After the 3 months, they decided to keep me for a further 3 months because I was doing well. I had obviously decided I'm going to give it my best. This is my best shot. I cannot afford to fumble. Whatever happens here, they have to have a good experience, because even if they don't keep me, again, they can recommend me to somebody who can give me the opportunity that I'm looking for. So I did my best, and after 6 months, they were like, we're going to keep you. So they decided to offer me a permanent contract. In this role, I was hired as a junior legal counsel, which was great. In the first year in that company, I was a junior legal counsel in the litigation department. And then in the second year, I was a junior legal counsel in the corporate department, which is again great because it allowed me to have proper experience that you wouldn't otherwise get during articles. So corporate was great. The thing about corporate is, coming fresh out of university, they respect you, they pay you well. Everything is just dignified and professional. But there were some problems. I had a ceiling. Unfortunately, as a lot of people would tell you, that there are a lot of alternative routes you can take in law, being legal counsel, junior legal counsel, or legal advisor. However, if you want to get into other roles, especially practicing roles or anything higher than that role, you do need to be an admitted attorney. And it sort of limits you because a lot of companies have a lot of legal counsel roles that they don't need you to be an admitted attorney. But on a scale of just weighing it, I would say 70% or 60% of the companies that will recruit a legal counsel or a legal advisor, they want you to be an admitted attorney. 30 or 40% of them, they don't really care. They're like, you got a law degree, you've got experience, we'll take it, we trust you. So I found that I was feeling limited because I was an admitted attorney, and that was my goal. That was the vision that I had. That was what I wanted. So I started thinking about it, and I thought that maybe I should probably, try again to pursue articles. That's where God led me. I didn't really want to do it though, because with articles, we know that the experience is different. They pay you significantly less, and it was a bit of a conflict. But I started applying in my second year when I was working as a junior legal counsel in the corporate division. And I applied, and I had my first interview, and I remember the director who was interviewing me, she asked me, since you're a junior legal counsel and you're in this role for 2 years since graduating, we have no doubt that you can do the job. Obviously, you can be a candidate's attorney because you have this experience, you've been in litigation, but we want to know why. Why do you want to leave corporate to now pursue your articles? And obviously for me, the reason was the obvious one, that I do want to be an admitted attorney. And also the law firm that was interviewing me specialized in medical negligence, which was initially why I wanted to get into law. Even my thesis in my final year was on medical negligence. So it was a great opportunity. It was a great match. Had my second interview, I was successful. And I was going to start working towards my articles in the next year. So they recruited in June. So the next year, January, this is 2022. In January of 2023, I would then start my articles, and it was in Cape Town. Mind you, I was working in Durban at that time. The job that I was working at, they had an office in Cape Town, and occasionally I would come down to Cape Town. So I had decided that I'd obviously love to be in Cape Town. I mean, it's a beautiful city. So this opportunity was in Cape Town, and then I got it. Carried on working, obviously trying to save up and whatnot, but I eventually left 3 months before starting my articles to spend time with my family, because we had a lot of things going on, a lot of personal things that were happening. And it was a great move, because by the time I came this side to Cape Town, I had spent time with my family, because I didn't know, I was actually not going to see them as often. Cool. I came to Cape Town. I started going through my articles journey. I registered with the LPC, had some problems which I would share at a later stage, and I started working towards my articles. And this was very challenging because, firstly, I was getting paid less than what I was in corporate, which is obvious. Articles, you're training basically. There's not a lot of things going on, but this was a really good law firm because they offered you medical aid, and the pay wasn't it wasn't bad. It was actually great compared to what they'd usually pay. Some people get paid 3,000, 6,000, 8,000. We were getting significantly more than that, but also this is Cape Town, so um it was not easy. Obviously, articles were difficult. And in this law firm, I was obviously specializing in personal injury law, which was completely different from what I was doing in corporate because it was more about drafting and agreements and real estate sort of problems and solutions and whatnot. And this was a completely different field of personal injury. And it was very it's practice, so it's litigation. You're spending a lot of time in courts, you're spending a lot of time with clients and consulting and so I did that. And then in the second year I wrote my board exams, which again I'm going to make another video about the board exams and what to expect and what to prepare and the things that I went through the board exams. I passed them by the grace of God, all four of them. And then I had to make a decision. Do I want to stay in practice and work and do the work of like court and or do I want to go back to corporate? Because I've had a taste of corporate and I know what it's like. So, and also what you will find is that when you finish your articles, the pay is not really great with a lot of law firms. It's like it's like you have to go upstairs, like step, this step, this step, this step. Like it's like you earn this much and then you earn this much and then you earn this much based on your experience. Whilst in corporate, it's completely different. In corporate, they give you an offer based on the value that you're bringing. It's not about a lot of these other things. The criteria is very specific. This is what we're looking for. This is the experience you have, and this is what we're offering more or less. And I didn't want to settle for less. I didn't want to get paid less because I knew exactly what I wanted. So I decided I would be leaving practice and I'd be getting back into corporate. It wasn't necessarily only about the compensation, although that was a huge thing for me. I'm going to be very truthful about it. But it was also about the experience. Practice is more cutthroat, it's more hectic, it's more intense, it's more stressful. And I didn't really enjoy that. Whilst with corporate, it's more calm. It's obviously any job is going to be stressful, but it's calmer, it's more organized, you know what to expect, and you don't have to wait a very long time to produce certain results. Everything is just easier, with corporate. So I just felt like I had been stressed for 2 years doing articles and exams and being in a new city, being far away from my family. I just wanted to do something that would come easy for me, and corporate was the answer. And I was also interested in getting into tech, legal tech, AI. I've always, not always, but obviously as I saw things progress, I realized that I wanted to find a way to get into tech and law in the tech industry. And the best way to do that is obviously corporate, because there's a lot of opportunities in corporate for that, as opposed to practice. Practice is also very rigid. Corporate is very broad. There's not an industry that you're limited to when you're in corporate. You can go into mining, you can go into finance, you can go into compliance, you can go into or everything you can think of. Basically, you can be in there. That's what makes law broad when you get into corporate. So I started looking, and there were a couple of opportunities in fintech, and that's what I applied for. And I remember it was just after I wrote my exams. I interviewed for a position as a legal analyst, specializing in subscription. That's now a different environment. Mind you, I started in corporate real estate, right? And then I went into personal injury. And now I was applying for a position in fintech, in private equity. Like, what am I thinking? But I've also, I love the idea of getting a lot of experience, a lot of exposure, skills, and whatnot. So I was like, what's up? Let's go. If they'll take me, I'll take it. So I had the first interview, went well. I had the second interview, but I was also interviewing with a lot of companies. So this is the thing. Initially, I thought it was a bad thing that I wasn't getting opportunities when I graduated or before graduating, like opportunities to do my articles. But because I first went into corporate and I got experience in litigation and also into commercial law and drafting, that allowed me to have a CV that looked vastly different than every other candidate attorney or every other law graduates. I had experience that a lot of people didn't have. So this made it possible for me to apply for a lot of roles that I wouldn't have otherwise applied for. It made it possible that by the time I was an admitted attorney, which is like that ceiling that a lot of people don't reach, and going above that, I had a lot of opportunities available to me. So I was actually getting a lot of interviews. I was like, ooh, getting tired with interviews. I think I had about 4 interviews, and I secured my position as a legal analyst and getting into private equity, which is what I do now. I'm a legal analyst who specializes in private equity subscription agreements, but it's a fintech company that digitizes the subscription agreements. So this way, I got to get into corporate again, get back into corporate. I got to get into a niche private equity field. I also got to get into fintech, because what we're doing now is basically digitizing and making everything just look sweet and short form, and everything in a digital form. So I was like, tick tick tick, and I'm getting paid exactly what I want. And it's a US company. I get to speak to people all over the world, people in New York, Mauritius, the UK, you name it. It's a really great opportunity. So that is where I am right now. Question being, will I go back into practice? I'm not quite sure. Right now, my number one priority is obviously to be in the space of private equity, get as much skills and experience and just industry knowledge, and then I'll take a decision from there. But I've been thinking a lot about now what's next for me, right? What is next for me now that I'm finally an admitted attorney, and now I'm in working in corporate, and by the blessing of God, I was able to secure the position while I was still in my articles. I had like 3 months left of articles, and God is amazing. They were willing to give me the opportunity, even though they wanted somebody to start immediately. So by the time I finished articles, I had like a week, and then I started my corporate job, and then I got admitted as an attorney finally in 2025 in April. So all of these goals, now I have the law degree, now I'm an admitted attorney, now I have this experience that I needed. It's just an idea of what is next for me. What does the future hold for me? Right now, I'm looking to get into AI. Obviously, there's a lot of things happening with AI, and wherever there will always be a gap for law, and there's not a lot of law that regulates what you can do with AI, what companies can do with AI. Also, privacy, because anything that comes that's new, there's always a huge gap of like, what about privacy? How does this affect our privacy? How does this affect our rights and whatnot? So that's the type of law that I want to get into. I want to get into regulatory frameworks, into like AI and privacy law, and you get to be a part of my journey and come along with me as I share my experience. There's a couple of certifications that I'm looking to get into this year, and probably bridge into that space if I don't stay in private equity, which also I love and I'm enjoying. So yeah, I hope that was a bit much, but I hope that it gives you an idea of what it has been like for me. And like I said, the primary thing that I would love to do is just to help people understand that just because they say no to you doesn't mean that's the end. It's also not necessarily a disadvantage. Keep applying, look at alternatives. I'll make another video as to what alternatives you can look at if you're not getting vacation work. What I did as a law student, what alternatives you can look into if you're not getting articles after graduating. But there's no need for you to be stuck in that. If they don't give you the opportunity, you need to look elsewhere, because your law degree is valuable. It's very difficult to get a law degree, like guys. It's very difficult to get a law degree. So don't think that just because you're not getting the opportunity, there's something wrong with you or you've made the wrong decision. And also, don't feed into the stereotypes that people will tell you that, oh, look at the unemployment rate, you don't have any connections. What are you going to do? You've been sitting at home. There's a lot of roots, and that's what I'm interested in sharing. And so, yeah, stick around. This is my journey. Tell me what you think. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. If you have anything to share about your experience, please do share that so that other people can have a look and see what somebody else's journey looked like. What did you do differently to sort of really have a fighting chance against all of these roadblocks and all of these like, I don't know, you have to jump through so many hoops, how did you work through it? Yeah, would be interested in hearing it. But thank you so much, and I will catch you in the next video, where I will also be sharing a lot of stuff like things I did to my CV, blah 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 blah. All right, thank you.